Well, it's a great day here at the SMC Journal podcast. I hope you're having a wonderful day. This podcast is all about performance engineering in IT today, and I'm Scott Moore, the host of the show. Today, we're going to be talking about Eggplant Performance, and this is the second of a two-part episode. The first one earlier this week, we discussed what Eggplant Performance is, how to download it, how to install it, how to apply a license key. Now I actually want to walk you through a short demo showing you how to work through a project, set up some monitors, look at a script, what it looks like, because people have been asking me about that. Eggplant is Keysight is the owner of Eggplant Software now, and they have been one of our sponsors since the first of this year. So I want to make sure that I spotlighted that application because many people have actually been asking me about that, and they wanted to see a short demo of it. So that's what we're going to do today. And before we do, let's talk about the sponsors that make this episode happen, and that includes my friends at Micro Focus. You know, performance matters to them, and they have the largest community of practitioners in the world. You can check that out at community.microfocus.com. Scan that QR code. Check out their LoadRunner family page around performance engineering with these products at the microfocus.com site. And also check out their YouTube channel for some interesting videos around performance engineering using the LoadRunner family of products. We're also sponsored by Supervisor. Stop losing money with your slow website. With Supervisor, you can continuously track the performance of your site, your code, your hosting. You can begin to predict your site page load speed with higher user volumes with an easy one-click load test solution. Find out more at supervisor.com. Also want to give a shout out to my friends at Total Performance Consulting. They provide the highest quality performance engineering, automation, QA, and development services possible. They've been around since 2006, have hundreds of years of combined experience. They've helped countless companies tackle some very hard performance challenges, and they can help you with your challenges, whether that's around application performance testing, performance analysis, remediation, infrastructure evaluation, setting up monitoring and analysis, best practices, and performance testing within a CI/CD pipeline. Many other services that will help your company get, keep, and extend your competitive edge. Check out Total Performance at totalperform.com. Thank you, sponsors, for supporting the performance testing community. And performance testing community, please support our sponsors as they sponsor this program. That's all I ask. Thank you. So just like last time, in our last episode, where we talked about Eggplant Performance from a general architecture, how it's laid out. If you haven't watched that video, you probably should. We downloaded it, we installed it, and then we applied a license key. Now we're actually ready to use it, and so just like last time, I want to play through a movie, and I'm going to narrate it for you. And let's see what this looks like. So we're going to go in and open up Eggplant Performance that we installed last time, and we are going to run a new project. Now remember, you have a workspace where you can have multiple projects. We're creating a second project in this workspace, and I actually had one named that, so I can either override it or name it something different. Notice down there on the left panel, we've got data sources, recordings, scripts, workflows. We got all these things to it. The first thing we want to do is create a recording. The nomenclature in here is that you would create a recording. This is a web script, so we're going to use Chrome. You could use Internet Explorer if you want. And we're just going to walk through this wizard to record a script. Notice that it kind of walks you through it. It tells you what you're going to use the recording bar for. You're going to set a transaction name once you're ready to put a timing around something. So you just type in the name. I put in the name home. And then we're going to navigate to smcjournal.com. Listen to me, please do not load test my website. I'm just showing you this as an example, and I'm not doing a load test. I'm just scripting against the site. This is just for demonstration purposes. The interesting thing about this is that Eggplant uses the concept of a recording that then turns into a script that then turns into a virtual user. And you'll see this more as we go along. And each step goes along with the next step. In other words, it builds upon itself. So now we've got a completed recording, but that's all that it is. We filter out any of the domains that we don't want in there. Like if we had some things from Google or third parties we didn't want to include, we would not include those. So we're just including my domain, smcjournal.com. And we could look at the recording or view an unfiltered recording of everything, but we're filtering out the stuff we don't want in our test because we don't want to load test that. And then we have a choice between Java or C# as our choice of language. And then we build a virtual user based on our project. And that's because we're going to apply these rules that you see here in your window now. I can't go into all of what these are in a short podcast like this. There's training that takes you through all of these settings and what they are. But this is just the basic way to create and generate a script from a recording. Now remember, we created a recording. Now we're taking that recording and we're generating a script with business rules and behavioral rules, and that's what we have now. So let's just actually take a look at what that looks like in the built-in IDE. So this is the equivalent of VUGen in LoadRunner. And notice it is C#, so if you're familiar with that, you'll be very comfortable with what you're seeing in terms of code here. One thing to note that I saw immediately was how it takes the transaction names that you created and it puts each one of them in their own function. Whereas in LoadRunner, the transactions would just be a LR start transaction and an LR end transaction, and any code that's in between that is what would be timed. Here we see an action 1 home. So there are multiple actions and multiple functions that contain whatever was run in that transaction, the number of steps that you ran, and that's what's included in here. And then there's a second action around the second transaction name. I called it blog when I clicked on the blog link. And from there, we would have all of these additional settings from these generation rules, how we parameterize, how we correlate. Just don't have time to go into any of that, but I just wanted to show you the basics of how you would do that. And so we've got data sources in here when we do begin to data drive our script and have data files. All of these scripts turn into workflows. That would be a complete business process. A work mix would be multiple business processes. And then test at the bottom would be your actual test scenarios. Next thing I want to show you is how to create a monitor. There are multiple kinds of monitors available here, but it's just going up to that top and adding a new monitor and selecting, do you want to do Android, iOS, Unix, Linux, or Windows? So I'm showing you here how it would look if you tried to set up a Linux-based monitor. It can either use JMX to grab it, or it can use the traditional rstat daemon through SSH. And if you're not familiar with that, you should be if you've ever done that within LoadRunner or any other tool, but this is how you do it in this product. So once you've actually created that, another thing we could do is create a Windows monitor. It uses Perfmon behind the scenes, Performance Monitor in Microsoft OS, and we can use whatever account will work and has permissions to either a local or remote machine. So you do this from any load generator that has permissions to that and any account that has permissions to that. So I'm going to show you what it actually looks like. I actually already created both of these monitors. And so I am masking the IP address and the login here. But basically here are what it adds by default. And so it has some built-in best practices for monitoring. If you have no clue, these defaults are probably good to start with. You can always go in and add more. Like in this Windows monitor, if I wanted to add another one that I didn't see, I could click on the add button and I would be able to connect to that machine, pulls in all the Perfmon counters available on that machine dynamically, and then I could select additional counters, move them from the left to the right, click OK, it would add them to the list. So that's how easy it is to add monitors for both Linux and Windows. Now, there's not an extensive list of monitors like there would be for some other commercial products, but this handles most of what you would probably see. And then here I'm actually just deleting the project, and then I can start all back over again. So I know that was a lot in a small amount of time, but you have the magic of video where you can rewind and replay this video. But I was having to talk kind of fast there to show you that's the basics of what a project looks like, a workspace looks like, the various components, how they're lined up in those, like a folder structure towards the bottom left. And then you just right click on anything that you want and add new. Go by the internal documentation. There are step-by-step guides. There are print screens, and there are some videos on YouTube. So if you can find the Eggplant Performance YouTube channel, and let's do that now. All right, so here's the Eggplant page on YouTube, and there are multiple products obviously that Eggplant has. Eggplant Performance just one, but they have a playlist set here, and there is not one associated with Eggplant Performance. However, if you look towards the bottom, there is one called Archive. So let's select Archive. You will see about a dozen videos on Eggplant Performance chapter by chapter, and as you can see there, if we're looking from the bottom up, an introduction to performance testing in general, recording your first script, script generation, how to debug a script, parameterization, correlation. These are all narrated by a guy named Tom Mazur, friend of mine. Tom Mazur is now at K6, but for a long time he was the main Eggplant Performance expert within Eggplant before Keysight was actually even acquired the company. So he knows this product as good as any out there, especially in the US, probably in the world. So these are still valid because even though there have been a couple of updates to the product, and we're now on 9.4 as of this podcast, still the menu options are valid. Most of the GUI still looks the same. You will notice some things if you are used to using LoadRunner. You'll notice some things that are missing. You'll notice some things that are different. You'll notice some terminologies that are different. I mentioned recordings. In VUGen for LoadRunner, you're used to creating a recording, and that recording in VUGen then becomes the script. Once you enhance it, we don't necessarily separate a recording from a script. The recording generates the C code. Well, that's a two-step process within Eggplant because the makers, I guess, originally thought, well, we would want to record a script, but we might record a session that might happen, but we might not want to create a script out of the whole recording. We may only want to record, take part of that recording session and turn that into a script. And what they call a script is really just kind of a portion of what a script might be in LoadRunner. For example, let's say I was recording a full business process and the user was going to log in, do a search, do an advanced search, find that thing that they're searching for from a random selection, and maybe print it out and then log out. I'm just making something up. Okay, so that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, about five transactions in LoadRunner. And it would be separated by, okay, I'm going into this step. It would all be within my action file, my main action file. I might separate the login into the initialize section and the logout in the end section. Similar to that style where you're modularizing that script out, they go even a step further in Eggplant Performance where you might take a recording session, you might record that whole thing, but you might only keep login, or you might have login be one script, and then each individual piece of that, the search and the advanced search might be different scripts. And from 5 scripts instead of 5 transactions in LoadRunner VUGen, you might have code for 5 what they call scripts that put together are that 5-step process fully from login to logout. So you would call them the same thing. Login, search, advanced search, logout, print, logout. So in Eggplant, then I would create a workflow, and that workflow is picking out those scripts and putting them in the order that you want them, repeating them as many times. So we would see that in the runtime settings where we've got the runtime behavior and we say, okay, well, maybe we want multiple action files and we want this first action file to run 3 times for every time it runs this other one, or randomly run one of these 3 action files. That's kind of how this was designed by its very nature in Eggplant Performance. Then a work mix would be after you have created those workflows from all of those scripts, from all of those recordings, now your work mix becomes the equivalent of like your LoadRunner scenario where you've got the different groups that run those business processes. Hopefully that's not confusing. Those of you who have used LoadRunner, I think you can map the one-to-one relationship there. But once you've got the work mix, that's really your load test scenario that you're going to run, and then monitors come into play. The way that they handle the parameterization, the correlation, and the way scripts are validated, verification of that images are there, or verification that certain text might be on a screen. Those are handled through these generation rules, and as you go and you find more, you continue to add generation rules to the script, and that's that long list that I showed you that I couldn't go into. As you create those, and maybe you add one and you find that you get so far, and then you've got another one that you need to add, you add that additional generation, you regenerate the script after creating a rule. So for some of us with a background, when I think of regenerating a script, I think, oh, in LoadRunner, if I regenerate a script, I lose all of my changes, and now I'm starting back over with a fresh script, and that's not the case in Eggplant Performance. You don't lose that. You're simply adding to that script additional code, additional information, additional logic, if you will, and you don't lose that. And then you can actually save all of that, those generational rules and business rules, basically, as a template, so that when you create other recordings and other scripts in this same application that could apply that, you don't have to redo that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So I like some of the way they handle the workflow that a person doing that, the role doing a performance test would do, because it does seem logical. But there are some things that I might do differently, that I have created a process around, that I kind of have to hold my hand a little bit behind my back to do it. But that's just a personal preference and a personal style. So I can't knock them for that. And Eggplant Performance has only 4 real major protocol types, right? We talked about that before, where they do allow you to do GUI-based scripts with Selenium or using Eggplant Functional. They've got the network protocol, the lower level stuff, which you can create in C++. Then they've got web virtual users and Citrix virtual users. For most small to medium-sized companies, especially those who maybe deal with healthcare, or you're dealing with legacy apps where you've rolled out Citrix as well, it pretty much covers everything that you might want to script against. And of course, if it's on the web protocol, any kind of API calls or anything like that, those are all fair game and tested the same way. The analysis, which we didn't really go into in this, the analysis is pretty straightforward once you've actually run a test. It pulls everything into, you've got the real-time graphs, but you've got the analysis afterwards, which you can then split in many different ways and show the displays. For more information about that, I want to point you to another resource, because we just don't have enough time to get into all of this on a podcast. But let me show you that. If you'll go to my website, scottmoore.consulting, another shameless plug, and go to my blog, I think it's about page 5 into my blogs right now, you'll see this Eggplant Performance product review. Click on Read More. You'll see a little article on this, and you will see a link to an online Google Doc. And this Google Doc is very long. It's probably 80 plus pages. And what that document includes is all of my findings from actually working with this product on a real live engagement that I did. Happened to be a Citrix-based product that I was testing against, but I go through all the things that I found about the product that I thought were really good, and things that I found that were missing, things that I would like to see, recommendations for improvements to the product managers, all of those types of things. So if you are interested in finding more and getting into more depth about that, make sure to check out that document, and it will guide you through as much detail as you want to go. And it also talks about the things I found of kind of what's behind the scenes that's making Eggplant work. What is the technical stack that's sitting behind there? I was surprised to find out that there's some Python back there as the main engine that's making it work, which is interesting, because you've got Python, and then you've got the C# Java stuff to create the scripts, and then you've got a Postgres database behind that that's crunching all the numbers and providing analysis, which was also very interesting to find. So a few surprises there. Eggplant Performance is it's a product that you typically see where it's an enterprise, mid-size account. They're dealing with traditional performance testing issues. Doesn't mean that you cannot use it in a continuous way. It doesn't mean that it doesn't support any of the newer stuff, because you can obviously code whatever you want, and you can obviously use the entire suite of Eggplant software together, integrated way. But understand that Eggplant Performance was part of an initial acquisition from a company called Facilita. So when you actually look at the scripting piece, you'll actually see some of the major libraries, the default libraries that you're inheriting your functionality from, say like system.facilita or eggplant.facilita, and that's where it came from. So I think what's happening with Keysight purchasing Eggplant software and then looking at kind of what they have in this portfolio of software, they're looking at what they have and what they should be doing with it, where they should invest in it. And I do know that after talking with them, I do know they want performance to be a main feature of their product suite. They want Eggplant Performance to be part of that 3 or 4 legged stool of QA. And so I see them making efforts towards updating the product, keeping it current, and I'm sure they would, if you're interested in talking to them more, they would love to talk to you about that, obviously. But they've been a great sponsor, and I appreciate them doing that, and that's why I wanted to spotlight this product. So when you're looking for more like traditional load testing of a back-end product, and you're looking at LoadRunner, which Micro Focus is one of my sponsors as well. We have them on the show and talk about LoadRunner as well. For the Performance Tour show that I have, Tricentis Neoload is a sponsor from there, so I'm always talking about LoadRunner and Neoload and Eggplant Performance as well. And you know, sometimes I will talk about any other tool that's out there if it's a useful tool. The value is not necessarily in the tool itself, it's the expertise, the process, and the output, the business value that comes from the output of a test. So it goes back to me always harping about you as a performance tester, whatever tool you use, the value that you bring is business value. It's not just testing value. It's not that I know how to script or I know how to use said product or I know how to, you know, run test and get test results for you. That's not as helpful. It's what you do with those test results to bring value to the business that matters. And that's the case with any tool. But thank you, Keysight, for your sponsorship this year. And thank you for letting me showcase your product on this show. What do you think about Eggplant Performance? I'd love to hear your feedback about that. You can always reach me at scottmoore.consulting. There's a link to my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter handle. You can also reach me by email at help@scottmoore.consulting. If you like this content that you're seeing, it would be great if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I love YouTube subscribers. Love to hear more from people about who you would like me to interview and topics that you'd like to see on this show. But until next time, this is Scott Moore for the SMC Journal podcast saying thank you for watching and bye-bye.